The Scaled Empire Prologue, the world before fire, before the wheel, before the bone-flint blade, before humans ever stood beneath the stars. There was a world of endless green, a single living continent, Moon, blanketed by forests, the size of modern oceans, where the trees reached into the skies like the fingers of sleeping gods, and the air shimmered with bioluminescence. The rivers ran warm with crystal-fed waters, and the skies blazed golden under twin moons. And in this paradise there rose an empire, not of mammals, not of fur or fang, but of scale. The Saurari. They were not lizards, nor beasts. They were thinkers, builders, dreamers of flesh and light. Cold-blooded, but not cold-hearted. For over 100 millennia, they ruled in balance with the world-rooted systems. Bio-cities grown from coral and vine, structures that breathed and sang and remembered. Their minds were sharp, honed by the inherited memories passed down through genetic memory streams. Where humans would later burn forests for cities, the Saurari asked the trees to build them homes. Where humans would bend the earth with iron and steel, the Saurari sang to stone, and it reshaped itself in harmony. Their empire had no war. No coin, no kings, only the order of the verdant eye. The spiritual architects of balance kept the rhythm of life steady, like the slow, deep breath of the planet itself. But all balance teeters on the edge of change. It began deep in the molten fissures of the Southlands. A whisper, a thought, a flame, one of their own, Zekrun, a gifted mind of the Firecast, uncovered ancient texts, carvings etched not in language but in frequency. Texts that spoke of another kind of power, not the slow, patient growth of the Worldroot, but the quickening force of the Earth's burning blood, geothermal energy, volcanic resonance, of fire too powerful to ignore. And so the Forged Fang was born, a new faction that broke from the order and sought dominion not through balance but through control. They built cities ringed in obsidian, towers humming with volcanic pulse. The jungles recoiled, the skies dimmed, the Worldroot stirred uneasily in its sleep. Some warned of prophecy, of the great cleaving, of an age long buried beneath time when the Saurari defied the balance before and paid the price in ash and silence. But memory is a fragile thing, even for those who inherit it through blood and the young. They do not listen to warnings written in stone. So the Forged Fang burned brighter. The order pleaded. The earth cracked, and somewhere deep beneath the skin of the Worldroot opened its ancient eyes. It remembered. This is the story of its final dream, the rise and fall of the last civilization before humanity, before the mammal. Before the myth. This is the story of the Scaled Empire and how it was lost. Chapter 1. Whispers in the canopy. The jungle breathed. It inhaled with mist, with warmth, with the perfume of ripened sky fruits and the quiet buzz of sapphire-winged pollinators. It exhaled heat, a slow pulse of living breath that shimmered above the canopy like a spirit dancing in sunlight. Valeth of the third scale stood upon a swaying root platform, her clawed feet curled slightly to grip the moss-slick surface. The world below was green infinity, broken only by the violet spires of Jaloran, the heart city of the eastern Saurari dominion. High above, a twin moon sky arched in soft amber, and the Worldroot's signal hummed low in her blood. But something was wrong. She could feel it, not in the air, not in her eyes, but in the roots beneath her skin. The jungle had grown too quiet. The bird song had fallen to a hushed flicker. The trees whispered not with joy, but with warning. She extended her palm toward the heart pod growing in the crook of a branch, translucent, pulsing, filled with glowing nectar. Her fingers brushed its surface, and immediately her mind slipped inward. Sight gave way to sound. Form melted into feeling. The Worldroot's echo surged into her, a flash of molten imagery. A canyon split by a spear of crimson light, trees screaming as their memory was seared away, a vast obsidian tower rising. From the earth, its walls throbbing with volcanic pulse. A scale, not hers, glinting with unnatural heat. Then, silence. Valeth staggered back, her breathing sharp and shallow. The vision had returned, stronger this time, no longer symbolic. It was real. She clutched the thick vine railing, her tail twitching as she steadied herself. "Too soon," she whispered. "They've breached the core layer already." A hummingbird fly buzzed past her ear, momentarily breaking her trance. She blinked hard and turned her gaze west, toward the horizon. Far in the distance, beyond the living towers, the sky was darkening. Not with storm, but with smoke. She wasn't the only one who had seen it. From below, a deep resonance echoed. Upward, a warning thrum from the ground itself, felt more than heard. Somewhere in the depths of the living city, the verdant eye had stirred. She descended quickly, scaling down from the canopy walkway, passing bioluminescent fungus nodes and winged vine watchers, her thoughts racing. Would they believe her this time? She was young, yes, but not unproven. She was born under the third moon of the blue cycle, marked with the spiral glyph of resonant blood. She had trained with the echo weavers. She had spoken directly with the root echo and, unlike the elder keepers, she was no longer afraid of what the deep memory held. Still, the Order did not trust visions. They trusted patterns, traditions, harmony. And harmony was dead in the south. At the heart of Jaloran, the city pulsed with living rhythm. Its structures swayed gently with the wind, grown from coral bark, shaped by song and heat and patient cultivation. No corners, no steel, only growing stone and rooted wisdom. Valeth entered the hall of scented thought, where the Order gathered in low conversation and silent deliberation. Elder Sane Cole, scaled in deep bronze with emerald veins, tilted his head as she entered. "You bring storm in your eyes, Valeth of the third scale," he said, his voice a rustle of dry leaves. "I bring a warning," she replied. "The forged fang has crossed the fire line. I saw a vision through the heart pod. The deep layer burns." Another of the elders, pale and massive, exhaled sharply. "Visions are not fact, not until the memory roots confirm." "The Worldroot is sick," she snapped, surprising even herself. "It speaks in fire now, not light. If we wait for confirmation, there will be nothing left to confirm." A silence fell, dense, heavy. Then Elder Sane Cole gave a slow, weary nod. "We have felt it too, the tremble beneath the pulse. You are not the only one. Then do something." Fixed her with a look that carried the weight of centuries. "We cannot act blindly. The forged fang are still Serari, still of the blood. If we accuse them, we risk civil rupture." Valeth turned toward the exit, her voice low. "Then rupture is already here. You just refuse to see it." And with that she was gone, down the spiraling root steps and into the city, as the echoes of her footsteps faded into the hum of a world that no longer knew if it was alive or dying. Chapter 2. The flame that thinks far to the south, where the breath of the world rose in steady plumes from deep volcanic fissures, the jungle gave way to obsidian and glass. There, amid blackened cliffs and sulfur-scented winds, rose Gorvoon, the city of fire speech. It did not breathe with the Worldroot. It did not sway to the songs of the trees. It throbbed, pulsing with artificial rhythm. Its streets fed by heat veins tunneled deep into the mantle, and at its center stood a figure wreathed in shimmering armor, not of metal, but of living volcanic resin, pulsing in time with the magma below. Zekrun, High Emberlord of the Forged Fang, knelt in quiet communion with the flames. He did not need vision to see. He felt through vibration. He spoke through resonance. He commanded the earth's burning blood. Another pulse, rumbled the obsidian console beside him, heat flow increasing, seismic tension rising. Zekrun opened his glowing, slitted eyes. "Good. We are near critical breakthrough." The voice that responded came not from a throat but from the wall itself, a thought echo projected through harmonic glass. "You are feeding instability into the tectonic web." "It is not instability," he said. "It is awakening." He stood, his tall frame casting shadows across the runes etched into the volcanic stone. Unlike the Order of the Verdant Eye, with their fragile harmony and slow-growing wisdom, the Forged Fang believed in evolution through disruption. Strength through heat, ascension through fire. Zekrun had seen what the Order refused to admit. The Worldroot was dying, not just in voice, but in structure. The deep fibers had begun to rot, choked by stagnation. The cycle of growth, peace, and passive balance had gone on too long. No empire, no species, could thrive without pressure. "What news from the inner ring?" he asked, stepping toward a translucent sphere grown from pressure-formed crystal. A holographic map flickered to life, showing the southern continent, glowing red in its tectonic arteries. One vein blinked orange, flashing erratically. "We had a breach," the voice reported. A root listener accessed our perimeter. Zekrun's gaze narrowed. "From the east?" "Yes. A young empath. No identity confirmed, but she connected to a resonance node before we could seal the conduit." He turned slowly, claws clinking against the heated floor. "Then the Order knows." For a long moment, silence. Then, "Shall we shut down the southern pumps?" Zekrun shook his head. "No. We move forward. Double the flow to the Crucible Vault. Let the Worldroot tremble. Let the trees whisper their fear." He stepped into the Forge Chamber, where glowing orbs of molten stone hovered within a lattice of magnetic vines. Energy surged around him like an aura. His armor responded in kind, brightening, cracking with luminous veins of red and gold. "Let them come," he whispered. "Let them watch the old world burn." Far above in the deep cloud canopy, a solitary avian creature, part feather, part root, with eyes like polished quartz, soared high on updrafts. Attached to its talon, a glowing seed pod. It flew fast and silent, guided by instinct older than language. The seed pod pulsed with memory, and within that memory, a message, a warning, or perhaps a challenge. Chapter 3. The Echo Weaver, Valeth's footsteps, whispered softly on the moss-covered root paths, winding beneath the towering canopies of Jaloran. The city's upper levels basked in gentle twilight, glowing softly with bioluminescent flora, but down here, beneath the living wood and stone, it was a different world. Here the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint hum of ancient restless power. She moved quickly, her clawed hands brushing aside tangled vines, her scaled skin catching faint glimmers of phosphorescent light. Her breathing was steady, but inside, her mind roiled with unease. The Heartpod's vision haunted her, visions of flames licking at the roots of the Worldroot, the great tree at the planet's center screaming in silence. The flames were not natural. They were the cold, relentless fire of the Forged Fang. If the Worldroot's pulse faltered, if the deep roots were truly burning, then nothing in the world would be safe. She reached the threshold of the dwelling she sought, an ancient tree, trunk grown hollow and hollowed by centuries of echo weaving. The bark was gnarled and etched with glowing, swirling runes that pulsed faintly with a rhythm that seemed alive. Valeth raised a hand and gently tapped the runes. They shimmered and parted like a veil, revealing a dim interior filled with the scent of resin and old memories. Inside, sitting cross-legged on a woven mat of living fibers, was Kael'thas, the city's most revered echo weaver, a keeper of the Worldroot's deep memory. His scales were mottled with gray and green, his eyes milky with age but still piercing with insight. Around him hung delicate strands of crystalline resonance, humming softly. He looked up, and for a moment his gaze was sharp and clear. "You come carrying the mark of the third moon," Kael'thas said, voice dry but warm. "The Worldroot's pulse is strong in you. It has whispered your name." Valeth nodded, stepping closer. "I've seen the fire," she said quietly. "The Forged Fang have breached the core layers. The Heartpod's visions grow darker every night. The Worldroot is dying, Kael'thas." The old Echo Weaver's eyes closed, and he inhaled deeply, as if drawing the very breath of the earth. "Sit, Valeth. The roots still speak to me." They will sing if you listen. She lowered herself opposite him, the air vibrating faintly as Kael'thas placed his hands on an orb embedded in the tree, an ancient crystal heart node fused to living wood. The orb glowed softly, radiating a melody of sound and color. A complex chorus rose, a tapestry of tonal patterns weaving through her mind. It was a song of time, of growth and decay, of cycles spanning hundreds of thousands of years. The roots sang of the Great Cleaving, a cataclysmic event from a distant past when the Saurari had first divided, when fire had burned and forests had fallen. It told of pride, of ambition, and the cost of breaking balance. Valeth saw flickering images in her mind's eye, vast forests cracking open, cities swallowed by ash, the Worldroot's light dimming beneath a sky of choking smoke. The forged fang. Kael'thas murmured. They echo that ancient flame. They seek power not through growth, but through destruction. Her heart thundered. How do we stop it? She asked. Kael'thas's gaze darkened. The Order fears the old ways now. They are bound by tradition and caution. But the roots do not forget. He gestured to a small carved relic lying beside the orb, a pendant shaped like a spiral scale, humming faintly with energy. This is the seed of resonance. It can awaken forgotten paths in the Worldroot, paths that may yet heal the wounds. Valeth reached for it, feeling a pulse of warmth as the pendant settled into her palm. Outside, the ground trembled again, a low rumble that vibrated through, stone and scale alike. The fire awakens, Kael'thas said solemnly. The age of reckoning has begun. Valeth rose, determination blazing in her golden eyes. Then we must act. If the Order will not lead, I will find those who will. As she stepped into the shadowed forest, the canopy above whispered, a chorus of ancient voices carried on the wind. The world was changing, and she would be the spark that either saved it or set it ablaze. Chapter 4. Embers of Doubt. The forges of Gorvun roared like the molten heart of a living world, an inferno trapped beneath obsidian towers and glass-forged battlements. The air was thick, heavy with heat, smoke, and the sharp, acrid scent of burning sulfur. Flickers of flame leapt and danced in the gloom, casting jagged shadows that writhed along blackened walls and scorched walkways like restless ghosts. Here, amid the symphony of fire and steel, the forged fang thrived. Captain Sathar stood alone, on the highest balcony overlooking the forge chamber, his dark eyes scanning the horizon beyond the volcanic ridges where ash mingled with the twilight sky. The twin moons, usually a source of calm reflection, were obscured behind a veil of drifting smoke, their pale light swallowed by the burning world. Sathar's armor clinked softly as he shifted his weight. Crafted from volcanic glass fused with hardened basalt, it gleamed dully in the flickering light. The blazing fang insignia on his chest plate, red-hot and jagged, marked him as a warrior devoted to the Empire's fiery path. Yet tonight, that symbol felt heavy on his chest, like a shackle binding him to a fate he was beginning to question. Below, the clang of hammer on anvil echoed ceaselessly. The forge was alive. Rivers of molten rock coursed through channels carved deep into the stone, glowing with an unnatural light. Workers moved with relentless purpose, their scales slick with sweat, eyes fixed on the task of shaping the future through fire and flame. Captain. A voice, sharp and urgent, cut through the heat and noise. It was Lareth, Sathar's second in command, young, fiercely loyal, and as unyielding as the fire itself. We have new intelligence from the Eastern Territories, Lareth said, his voice low but tense. The Order of the Verdant Eye is mobilizing. Valeth's vision spreads like wildfire. They prepare to challenge our advance. Sathar's jaw tightened, the lines of worry deepening across his scaled face. Valeth, he muttered, tasting the name as though it were a bitter poison. That fledgling carries the blessing of the Worldroot. Her words sway the people. The Order's ranks grow stronger because of her. Lareth's gaze sharpened. Yet we command the flame. We offer strength, unlike their fragile harmony. Zekrun's vision is the only future that can endure. Fire cleanses. Fire creates. Sathar turned, the heat from the forges licking at his armor. His breath came slower now, heavy with doubt. But at what cost? Every strike we land scorches. The roots that anchor the Worldroot itself. Its pulse falters, growing faint and fractured with each act of destruction. The younger warrior's eyes burned with zeal. We cannot be bound by fear or hesitation. The old ways have strangled us with stagnation. Only through flame can we burn away decay. Only from the ashes can a new, stronger empire arise. Sathar's fingers curled into tight fists. His thoughts spiraled with memories. Stories of past ages when ambition had wrought ruin, when fire had consumed all in its path and left nothing but desolation. I once believed as you do, he confessed, voice heavy with years of weariness. But now, I fear we have unleashed a force we cannot control. If this fire rages unchecked, it will not purify. It will destroy everything. The very world we seek to command will crumble beneath our feet. A deep tremor rippled through the ground beneath them, subtle but unmistakable. The molten core beneath Gorvoon pulsed with renewed vigor, as if awakening from a long slumber. The ancient volcanic heart was a living beast, hungry and restless. Sathar's gaze hardened as he looked into the glowing abyss below. The earth remembers, he whispered. It remembers the ancient fires and the scars they left behind. Lirith stepped forward, lowering his voice to a near hiss. Then we must be the masters of this fire, or it will consume us all. Sathar's eyes met Lyrath's, conflicted and fierce. Or perhaps the fire has already consumed us. The rumble deepened, shaking the walls and sending sparks cascading from the forge's ceiling. The world seemed to hold its breath, caught between destruction and rebirth. Around them, the flickering flames roared louder, echoing the turmoil within Sathar's soul. In this crucible of fire and doubt, the fate of the Scaled Empire hung by a thread, fragile, volatile, and burning. Chapter 5. Whispers in the Canopy. The jungle breathed around Velith like a living, breathing entity, an endless cathedral of emerald leaves and twisting vines stretching upward, their tips barely catching the scattered light of the twin moons. The thick canopy filtered the sky into mottled patches of silver and green, casting shifting shadows that danced with the soft sighs of the forest. Beneath this vast ceiling, the air was thick with the scent of moss, damp earth, and blooming night flowers whose petals glimmered faintly in the dim light. Strange, delicate insects hummed softly, weaving melodies that resonated with the ancient heartbeat of the land itself. Velith's scaled feet pressed lightly against the soft, loamy soil. Her senses were sharpened, every rustle and whisper caught, with precision. The forest was alive, but not all was friendly. Predators lurked in the shadows, and the unrest beneath the Worldroot gnawed at the edges of her thoughts. Her journey had brought her here, to the eastern wilds, far beyond the stone, cities and volcanic forges. The visions from the heartpod haunted her, the fires eating the roots, the darkness swallowing the light. Time was slipping, and she needed guidance. From the depths of the jungle, a voice slipped through the rustling leaves, a sound almost like a whisper carried on the wind. "You seek answers," the voice said softly. Velith spun with lightning reflexes, claws raised and eyes narrowing into sharp slits. From behind the colossal root of an ancient tree, a figure emerged, stepping lightly yet confidently onto the mossy ground. He was unlike any she had encountered. His scales shimmered in deep emerald hues, flecked with silver patterns that twisted sinuously like rivers of light flowing beneath his skin. A long crest swept back from his brow, elegant and regal, and his eyes glowed with a calm, steady light. "I am Thalor," he said, voice smooth and low, carrying a quiet authority. "Guardian of the lost paths, secret trails hidden beneath the canopy and forgotten by the Order." Velith lowered her claws, eyes studying the stranger carefully, but with growing interest. "You walk the paths the Order has abandoned?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with suspicion. Thalor nodded, stepping forward into a shaft of moonlight. "The Forged Fang's fire scars the roots and threatens the very life of the jungle. But the Worldroot still speaks, through whispers and songs that only a few can hear. He reached out and touched the rough bark of a massive tree beside them. The surface glowed faintly, etched with ancient glyphs pulsing in soft blue light. Symbols lost to most but alive in memory. "Follow me," Thaler said, his eyes gleaming with quiet urgency. "The Worldroot guards a secret, one that might save us if we listen carefully." Without waiting for a response, he turned and slipped deeper into the jungle, moving with a grace that seemed to blend him into the shadows and light alike. Valeth hesitated only a moment before following, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. As they journeyed deeper, the jungle around them grew denser, more alive. Strange creatures watched silently from the shadows, glowing eyes blinking in the dark, wings fluttering like whispers overhead. Thaler led her along winding routes and hidden glades where the air hummed with unseen energy. The faintest echoes of ancient songs floated between the trees, melodies woven from the very fabric of the earth. Valeth felt the weight of those whispers pressing against her mind, stirring memories and secrets long buried. "This place," she said quietly, "it feels sacred." Thaler smiled faintly. "It is. The jungle is a living memory, a keeper of truths the Order refuses to remember. Here, the balance is fragile, but still holds." As they approached a hidden clearing, Valeth noticed a circle of stones carved with elaborate runes, an ancient site untouched by flame or steel. "The lost paths converge here," Thaler explained. "It is where the Worldroot's voice is strongest. If we are to heal the scars left by fire, we must listen to what it tells us." Valeth knelt beside one of the stones, tracing the glowing glyphs with her claws. A warmth spread through her fingertips, and suddenly the whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices rising from the roots themselves. Visions flashed behind her eyes, rivers of light flowing beneath the soil, the pulse of life threading through every leaf and scale. But intertwined with that life was a dark corruption, a spreading sickness fueled by the forged fang's relentless flames. Valeth's breath caught. The world was at a tipping point. "We do not have long," she said, her voice firm. "The forged fang grows stronger every day. If the Worldroot dies, so do we all." Thaler's expression darkened. "Then we must act swiftly. The Order fears what the forged fang threaten, but they are bound by their laws. We cannot wait for their permission." A rustling from the treetops drew their attention, and Valeth's hand went instinctively to her dagger. From the shadows dropped a figure, a lithe scout draped in vines and leaves, her eyes sharp and wary. "I bring word," the scout said quickly. "The forged fang march closer to the jungle's heart. They will strike soon." Valeth exchanged a grim glance with Thaler. The fires were coming, and the fate of the Scaled Empire would be decided beneath the whispering canopy. Chapter 6. Flicker of Rebellion. The ancient roots of the Worldroot towered high above, their great limbs twisting and sprawling like the fingers of the earth itself. Valeth stood beneath their vast shadow, the coolness of the hidden enclave, a sharp contrast to the humid jungle outside. The air here hummed softly with the pulse of raw power, a living heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with her own. She ran her clawed fingers lightly over the bark of the massive tree, tracing the glowing veins that snaked beneath its surface. The pulsing light echoed like distant thunder, a fragile signal of life teetering on the edge. Beside her, Thaler's emerald scales caught the dappled light filtering through the canopy. His expression was grave, the weight of his knowledge pressing down like the massive trunk overhead. "We cannot wait for the Order's sanction," Thaler said in a low voice. "Their reverence for the old laws blinds them. They hesitate while the flames consume the roots." Valeth nodded, her gaze fierce. "If the forged fangs sever the Worldroot's deepest tendrils, the entire balance will shatter. Not just the jungle. Everything. We must move beyond caution. Unite or perish." A sudden rustle in the shadows made her turn sharply. The scout from the treetops emerged again, urgency flashing in her sharp eyes. Forged fang scouts moved swiftly through, "The outer groves," she reported breathlessly. "They bring war machines, metal monstrosities designed to crush and burn. Their goal is to sever the oldest roots, to destroy the source of the Worldroot's strength." Valeth's jaw tightened. "They seek to kill the heart itself." Her mind raced, calculating risks and allies. The order is fractured. Some cling to peace, others fear the chaos rebellion might bring. We will need every ally, especially those hidden in plain sight. Thaler's eyes narrowed. Loyalties shift like shadows. Some who claim the Order's banner will betray us before the flames die down. Valeth looked out beyond the roots, where the jungle thickened and darkened like a living wall. Her mind drifted to the cities of stone and fire, to the brutal logic of the forged fang. She had to prepare for war, but not just with weapons. There were secrets in the roots, old magics and forgotten pacts that might turn the tide. Far away, under a sky cracked with crimson lightning and thick with ash, the volcanic city of Gorvoon pulsed with fiery life. Captain Sathar stood atop the city's highest battlement, his basalt armor gleaming faintly in the infernal glow. Below, rivers of molten lava carved glowing veins through the stone, the city's heart beating with heat and fury. His breath came slow, the weight of command pressing down like the thick armor he wore. For years he had believed in the cleansing fire, the relentless power of flame to remake the world in strength and order. But now doubt crept through him like cold water running beneath the lava's surface. He replayed his last conversation, with Lareth in his mind, their impassioned arguments echoing in the silence. Fire cleanses the rot. Only through fire can the Empire survive. But Sathar knew now those words were not enough. He looked out over the glowing horizon, where the smoke from the jungle fires darkened the sky like a spreading wound. Fire is a tool. Sathar whispered to the night, voice raw with conflicted hope. But it must be wielded with wisdom, or it will burn us all. His thoughts were restless, shadows flickering in his mind like flames devouring a fragile wick. Was there a way to control the inferno? To forge a future where strength did not demand sacrifice beyond reason? The ember of rebellion burned quietly in his chest, an uncertain flicker that grew stronger with every passing day. Back in the jungle, Valeth and Thalor prepared to move. The time for whispers and secrets was fading, the fires were coming, and soon the fate of the Scaled Empire would be decided, not just by claws and steel, but by the choices they made beneath the whispering canopy. Chapter 7. Shadows in the Embers. The twilight over Gorvoon burned with a cruel and unyielding beauty. Rivers of molten lava snaked between obsidian towers, casting an infernal glow that bathed the city in a hellish light. Thick smoke curled into the crimson sky, blotting out the stars and painting the horizon with ash and ember. From the highest spire of the volcanic citadel, Captain Sathar gazed down on the burning veins of his home, a city forged from fire and stone, both magnificent and merciless. His heavy armor reflected the fiery rivers below, but his eyes, dark and troubled, saw beyond the flames to the storm gathering at the edges of the empire. Within the great war chamber beneath the citadel's core, the air was thick with heat, tension, and the smell of scorched metal. Commanders of the Forged Fang, warriors draped in basalt and volcanic glass, gathered around a massive obsidian table, etched with maps glowing faintly from embedded magma. Sathar's voice cut through the murmurs. The Order of the Verdant spreads their influence through the eastern jungles. Valeth rallies clans we believed fractured and isolated. If we do not act swiftly, our borders will crumble. A grizzled veteran slammed his fist against the stone table, sending a tremor through the room. His scales were scarred from countless battles, and his eyes burned with unwavering ferocity. Then let the fires consume their roots, burn every tree and burn every tribe until there is nothing left but ash beneath our feet. The council chamber rippled with murmurs, some with grim approval, others with hesitation. Sathar raised a hand to silence them. Fire is a tool, yes, but a double-edged one. The Worldroot's power runs deeper than we ever imagined. We risk losing everything if we act without caution. Whispers of dissent rose. A younger commander leaned forward. Caution is weakness. Our strength lies in domination. We must crush them before they gather further strength. Sathar's gaze hardened. And what if their strength lies not only in arms, but in the land itself? The roots we burn are the foundation of this world. If they perish, so do we. Lirath, standing quietly in the shadows, stepped forward. Captain, I have urgent news from the front. The room fell silent as Lirath spoke in a low tone. The Verdant Eye has formed alliances with clans once hostile to the Order. They march not just to defend the jungle, but to strike at the heart of Gorvoon itself. Sathar's chest tightened. The fires within him flickered with a mixture of resolve and dread. Then our next moves must be precise. We cannot let the Empire fall to whispers and shadows. Meanwhile, deep in the heart of the jungle, Valeth and Thalor moved with purpose beneath the dense canopy. The glow of bioluminescent plants painted their path in ethereal blues and greens, illuminating ancient roots that wound like veins through the earth. The Forged Fang believe power is absolute, wielded through fire and conquest, Thalor said, softly, glancing around the living fortress of vines and leaves. But strength without balance leads only to ruin. Valeth's eyes narrowed, reflecting the soft light of the roots. We fight not just to protect the jungle, but to preserve the very soul of this world. The Worldroot's whisper grows weaker with every strike against it. Soon it may fall silent forever. Ahead, the sounds of the jungle night swelled. Calls of distant beasts, the rustle of leaves in a cool breeze, and faint drumming in the distance. The drums were a signal. The clans were mobilizing. Thalor's voice dropped to a whisper. The clans are fractured, their loyalties divided. Some see the Order as a relic, others as the only hope. Uniting them will not be easy. Valeth's gaze burned with determination. They will follow if we show them a future worth fighting for. Suddenly, movement flickered at the edge of the clearing. A scout from a distant clan, her eyes sharp and wary. She delivered a warning that tightened the knot in Valeth's stomach. The Forged Fang's war machines grow in number and strength. Their siege engines can tear through roots and stone alike. They plan to strike the oldest groves within the week. Valeth's claws clenched. Then the time for waiting is over. The ember of rebellion must become a blaze. We will unite the clans, rally the Order, and face the fire head-on. Back in Gorvoon, Sathar retreated to the volcanic battlements, the city's molten heartbeat echoing his own conflicted pulse. The fires below were both his strength and his curse, a symbol of power and a warning of ruin. He whispered into the smoke-choked night, fire must be wielded with wisdom, or it will consume us all. His eyes lifted to the swirling ash clouds. The ember of rebellion was no longer just a flicker, it was a growing flame, one that could ignite the Empire's fate. Chapter 8. The Forge of Alliances. The jungle was alive with whispered conversations and cautious glances as the clans gathered in the sacred glade, a natural amphitheater carved by the ancient roots of the Worldroot itself. Giant ferns brushed the heavy air, droplets of dew sparkling like jewels on their leaves. The scent of damp earth and blooming orchids mingled with the faint trace of smoke from ceremonial fires burning at the glade's perimeter. Valeth stood tall upon the raised platform of interwoven roots, the pulse of the Worldroot thrumming beneath her feet like a living drum. Her emerald scales caught shards of filtered sunlight, shimmering with an almost otherworldly light. Around her, dozens of clan leaders and warriors watched warily, their bodies tense, some draped in feathers and woven vines, others marked with the scars of ancient rivalries. She inhaled deeply, her voice rising above the murmurs, clear and commanding. The Forged Fang come with fire and steel to burn our lands and crush our spirits. They seek to sever the roots that bind us to this world, the Worldroot itself. But we are not helpless. The crowd shifted uneasily. Old hatreds lingered like shadows beneath the canopy. The Serpent's Coil clan eyed the Jade Talons with mistrust. The Fangtooth tribe bristled beside the Emerald Veil. Yet beneath the surface of distrust flickered a shared fear and a fragile hope. Thalor stepped forward, his silver-flecked scales glowing faintly in the dappled light. His voice was calm but urgent. For centuries we have been divided, torn by petty feuds and pride. But now the fires approach not just our homes, but the very foundation of our existence. Our strength lies not in isolation, but in unity. Alone, we will fall. Together, we might endure. A ripple of nods passed through the gathering, though some faces remained guarded. From the shadows, Elder Merak emerged slowly, leaning on a gnarled staff etched with ancient runes. His mottled scales bore the patina of age and wisdom, and his eyes, clouded but piercing, held the weight of many seasons. Vileth speaks with the truth of the ages. Merak's voice was gravelly, carrying the solemnity of countless rituals. The Worldroot's veins connect us all. To let them burn is to invite the death of our world. But trust does not come lightly. If we are to forge this alliance, it must be tempered with respect and understanding. Vileth met the elders' gaze, unwavering. Then let this gathering be the spark that kindles a new dawn. Not merely survival, but a rebirth. A scaled empire united, strong enough to face the fire. The crowd's tension began to ease, replaced by the stirring of hope and determination. But beneath the surface, old wounds simmered, rivalries that could tear apart even the strongest bonds. Thousands of miles away, the volcanic city of Gorvun pulsed with an oppressive heat that seemed to seep into every stone and breath. Captain Sathar's war chamber was a cavernous hall carved from black basalt, lit by rivers of molten lava that coursed beneath the transparent floors like veins of fire. The council gathered, faces illuminated by the flickering glow of magma. Torches. Sathar stood at the head of the obsidian table, etched with maps of jungle and mountain, scars of past battles marked in glowing red. "We face enemies in the jungle," Sathar said, his voice echoing against the stone walls. "But also within our own ranks. The order is fractured. Some thirst for conquest, others question the price of the fires we wield." A young commander, her scales gleaming like polished onyx, leaned forward with fierce determination. "Captain, the verdant eye's strength grows daily. They forge alliances we once thought impossible. If we do not act decisively, Gorvun itself will be at risk." Sathar shook his head slowly, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. "Brute force alone will not win this war. The Worldroot's power is ancient and deep. If we fail to understand it, we risk losing not just the jungle, but the empire itself." The chamber fell into a tense silence. Sathar's words were a challenge to tradition, a call to rethink everything. As the meeting dispersed, Sathar lingered by the massive window that overlooked the glowing lava flows. The red-orange light cast deep shadows across his face, illuminating the conflict within. His thoughts returned to Vileth, the fierce, resolute leader who dared to defy the flames. Their fates were now entwined, like fire and root, locked in a struggle that would determine the future of all. Back in the jungle, Vileth watched as the clans began to speak in quieter circles, their old grudges temporarily set aside. The negotiations were fragile, built on mutual need and the thin hope that they could survive what was coming. But the fires beyond the mountains grew nearer, their smoke darkening the sky. The roar of war machines echoed faintly even here, a chilling reminder of the battle to come. Vileth clenched her claws, resolve hardening like the ancient bark around her. The spark of rebellion had ignited. Now it must blaze into a flame that could not be extinguished. Chapter 9. The roots of war night had fallen over the jungle like a thick velvet shroud, but the canopy pulsed with life. Fireflies glowed like scattered embers. The Worldroot, buried deep beneath the earth, thrummed with rising tension, its ancient heart sensing the convergence of fate. Beneath a massive moonlit bough known as the Elder's Arch, Vileth stood beside Thalor and Elder Merak. Around them, the allied clan leaders had returned, this time not with doubt in their eyes, but preparation. Maps were unrolled over moss-covered stones. Glyphs were carved into wood and bone, marking movements, paths of resistance, and points of siege. Warriors sharpened obsidian-tipped spears. Shamans whispered over bowls of mist. seeking visions from the jungle's spirit echoes. The Forged. Fang are on the move, said Valeth, her eyes scanning the horizon. A full division marches through the Blackstone Rift. They mean to cut the Worldroot at its oldest limb, the Heartgrove. A hush fell over the camp. Thaler stepped forward, pointing to a ravine on the map. We will meet them at Sulkar's Pass. The cliffs will nullify their numbers, and the vines of the cliffside roots can be awakened. We strike swiftly, then vanish into the green. There was silence. Then one of the leaders, a massive brute from the Fangtooth clan, grunted. The Forged Fang do not fear jungle tricks. They bring siege engines, metal walkers, flame breathers. They bring death, Mirak intoned gravely. But so do we. And our death sings with the power of the earth. Let them burn the surface. We strike from below. Valeth turned toward the warriors now gathering by the hundreds. Tonight, we forge more than alliance. We forge purpose. From root to scale, from vine to claw, we defend the soul of this world. A chorus of tribal cries echoed through the canopy. The rebellion had become a war. Beyond the jungle, at the base of the key Blackstone Mountains, the air shimmered with heat. Gorvoon's vanguard had arrived. Black-scaled soldiers marched in formation, obsidian shields and flame-forged glaives reflecting the glow of nearby braziers. Towering siege walkers, massive reptilian-shaped constructs powered by molten cores, plodded forward with deafening steps. Captain Sathar stood on a rise, his cloak whipping in the dry wind. The jungle stretched ahead, deceptive in its silence. Lirath approached, his voice low. Scouts report movement within the tree line. They wait for us in Sulkar's Pass. Sathar's eyes narrowed. Good. Let them think we walk into their trap. He turned to the engineers below. Double the fuel in the flamecasters. Set fire to the ridge. Starve the vines before they reach us. But Captain, Lirath hesitated. If we ignite the upper ridge, we risk triggering a slide. The roots there are ancient, alive. Then we show the jungle that even the living must bow to fire. Back at Sulkar's Pass, as the first lights of the Forged Fang's torches flickered in the dark valley below, Valeth crouched near a thick cluster of exposed root veins. Her claws touched the bark. The Worldroot pulsed, a whisper echoed, not a word, but a feeling, pain, urgency, resolve. The jungle remembers, she murmured, eyes glowing faintly. Thaler joined her, his blade drawn, coated in sap blood. Then, let the jungle remind them. He raised a horn to his lips and blew. A deep, primal sound echoed through the cliffs. From the canopy above, warriors dropped like shadows. From tunnels below, vines surged like serpents. Rocks rained down. Arrows flew. The war had begun. Chapter 10. Ashes and awakening. Sulkar's Pass was ablaze. The jungle cried out, wood cracking, roots tearing, smoke spiraling into a blood-red sky. The once lush valley had become a crucible of fire, where ancient trees fell with groaning. Agony and rivers hissed into steam. The scent of burning sap and scorched flesh thickened the air. For every vine consumed, a scream echoed across the cliffs. From the high ridges, Valeth watched as her homeland was set alight. The Forged Fang had arrived in full, thousands strong. Their obsidian-plated warriors advanced in formation, eyes glowing through slits in helms designed to intimidate and dehumanize. Behind them, massive siege beasts lumbered, towering constructs forged of iron, bone, and molten ore. Their feet crushed stone and root alike. Some hissed steam from their chests like dragons of steel. Others carried flame casters capable of reducing entire thickets to cinders in seconds. Sparks rained down from above as the jungle canopy collapsed. What once had been a fortress of life now resembled a battlefield from forgotten hells. Valeth's jaw clenched. We cannot outmatch them in fire, she said to Thaler, her voice steady, even as the sky burned. But the earth beneath them still answers to us. He nodded, touching the ground reverently. Then we strike not at their steel, but at their arrogance. And the jungle listened. From hidden tunnels and woven hollows, the warriors of the allied clans rose like ghosts. Camouflaged in leaf, scale, and shadow, they struck from all angles, arrows laced with neurotoxin, blades carved from hardened root, bolus of living vine that coiled around legs and throats. Above, shamans called down storms of biting insects and birds of prey. Below, tremors cracked the rocks, sending fissures racing toward enemy machines. But the forged fang had come prepared. Flame belchers lit up the night, sweeping waves of searing heat across the battlefield. Shriekers, grenade-like devices of compressed magma, exploded with concussive force, shattering branches and bone alike. One by one, the jungle warriors were pushed back, driven toward the narrowing gorge that led to the sacred core, toward the Heartgrove. In the command ranks, Captain Sathar surveyed the burning pass. His armor shimmered with ash and battle wear, his glaive crusted with blood and sap. Yet his eyes were distant. The war was going according to plan. His generals cheered each push, every clearing set ablaze. And yet, it felt wrong. Lirath, his second-in-command, approached with a furrowed brow. We've broken through their forward lines. The final bastion is ahead, carved into the cliffside. Should we order the flamecasters in? Sathar's voice was cold, deliberate. No, we move in ourselves. Lirath blinked. Sir, the Heartgrove is not a bunker. It's something more, Sathar said quietly, his voice hardening. I want to see it with my own eyes. They advanced through the smoke. What they found beyond the gorge was not a fortress, but a sanctum, a natural chamber carved by time, shaped by vine and root into a cathedral of living wood. The Heartgrove pulsed softly with a golden-green light that emanated from a single massive root, a vein of the Worldroot, thick as a war beast, curled upward through the hollow, like a serpent mid-coil. And standing beneath it was Velith, unbroken, unbent. Her body bore the marks of battle, scratches, burns, blood, but her eyes burned brighter than ever. They locked eyes. Do you see it now? She asked. This is not just our sanctuary. This is the heart of the world, and you are standing on the edge of killing it. Sathar stepped forward, blade sheathed, his voice low. All my life, I was told the jungle was wild, savage, that order would only come through fire. And what do you see now? She challenged. He hesitated, then spoke, not as a captain of fire, but as a child of the same earth. I see life, older than law, deeper than steel. A silence stretched between them. Then the Worldroot moved, not violently, but with purpose. It arched, pulsing, and the ground itself began to hum, not a tremor of destruction, but of choice. All along the pass, vines paused mid-lash, fires dulled to embers. Warriors, both, jungle and forged, stilled their hands, confused, watching the jungle come alive. A whisper rose from the Heartgrove, not a voice, but a memory. Sathar staggered, clutching his head. Velith's eyes widened. The Worldroot was showing them visions of the past, before war, before cities, when dragons danced in the skies and scaled kin walked beside titanic beasts. A time when fire and root coexisted, not in conflict but in harmony, when the Scaled Empire was one. Sathar dropped to his knees, not in surrender, but in understanding. And Velith, her own breath ragged, said softly, We've been burning what we forgot, but now we remember. Outside the grove, the forged fang soldiers lowered their weapons. The jungle warriors did not attack. All held still, and from that silence, truth grew like a sprout in soot. Later, the grove became a sacred neutral ground. Flame-born architects and vine-speaking shamans sat side by side. Not all forged fang agreed. Not all jungle tribes forgave. But a seed had been planted. In scorched soil, yes, but one ready to rise. Velith and Sathar stood beneath the Worldroot, watching the first glimmers of change. We will not go back to what we were, Velith said. Too much blood has been shed. No, Sathar agreed, but we can become something new. Not root, not flame, but balance. She extended her hand. He took it. And in that simple gesture, the war ended. Not in conquest, but in awakening. Epilogue. The green flame, the fires had long since died. What remained of Sulkar's pass was now unrecognizable. Not from destruction alone, but from transformation. Where ash had choked the rivers, new sprouts had emerged, defiantly green. The bones of siege engines lay crumbled and moss-covered, slowly pulled into the earth by vines with patient intent. Once blackened cliffs now shimmered with soul bark, a rare flowering fungus that only grew where trauma and regrowth met. The jungle was healing, not forgetting. At the heart of it all, the Worldroot pulsed softly, its great luminous vein encased in a living temple grown by both vine and craft. Not just a place of worship now, but of unity. Inside the chamber, beneath the sacred canopy, Valeth stood barefoot on the warm soil. Her once wild hair was now braided with strands of metal and bark. On her shoulders rested not armor, but the ceremonial mantle of the green flame, a new order born from both rebellion and empire. Behind her, stone tablets glowed with bioluminescent script, stories carved by her people, read aloud to all who entered. Stories of war, yes, but more importantly, of change. Valeth turned as a familiar voice approached from behind. "Your counsel waits, Flamebearer." Sathar stepped forward, no longer wearing the sigil of the forged fang. His armor was now half plate, half hide. A ceremonial blade on one hip, a vine-wrapped scroll on the other. He bowed, not in subservience, but in respect. Valeth smiled. "Do they still argue over river routes?" "Of course, but now they argue with maps and not spears." She gave a soft laugh, then looked toward the canopy above. Dappled light fell across the chamber, filtered through golden-green leaves the size of sails. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "what we could have become if we hadn't forgotten the root?" Sathar tilted his head. "Maybe we needed the fire first, to burn away the rot, to make space for something new." She nodded, silent for a moment. Then, "The jungle remembers everything, even the pain, especially the pain." They exited together into the warm daylight. Across the Heartgrove Valley, settlements had begun to rise. Not from concrete and steel, but from woven wood, shaped stone, and living towers. Black-scaled artisans and jungle clan weavers worked side by side. Children with glowing eyes chased bird lizards through the shade. A new flag hung from the tallest perch, a spiral of root and flame interwoven, never-ending. The world was no longer as it was, but neither was it what it had been forced to become. It was something reborn, something awake. The end.
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know in the comments what ideas you would like the next story to be about. Please leave a thumbs up, share, subscribe, comment.